Hey everyone, this is The Short and Sweet on Canada's human rights history. Now, to start, let's answer a simple question, shall we? What exactly are human rights? Well, human rights can be defined as the rights one simply has by virtue of being human. Simple, right? Human rights as a concept evolves and adapts constantly. The rights of humans throughout history show us the values societies have had during certain points in time, just as our rights nowadays reflect what the majority of us value as a society in Canada. Okay, so if we want to get technical about things, we can say that human rights in Canada existed long before Canada itself even existed. How is this possible? Well, because Canada is sort of like Great Britain's baby. In case you didn't know, we started out as a bunch of British colonies that moved on to become a new country. So, when Canada was born, we had the same human rights as Great Britain. However, human rights didn't start with Britain. For that, we're gonna have to go way back. One of the greatest influences on British law, and subsequently our laws and rights, is biblical law, also known as Hebrew law or Mosaic law. In the Christian Bible, it is said that over 1,000 years before current era, a man named Moses climbed a mountain called Mount Sinai, where God gave him 10 commandments to be followed by the Hebrew people. Mosaic law differed from previous laws of the Hebrew people. Mosaic law was more concerned with punishing the committer of a crime rather than allowing them to shift the penalty to a slave of theirs. Mosaic law also expressed concern for the poor, who were mistreated much worse before then. So, from this we can determine that human rights back then were messed up in the sense that slavery was allowed and many other humans were not considered equal. But they were moving in the right direction. In the year 43 current era, the Roman Empire conquered Britain and imposed their laws onto the British people for over 300 years. Rights of human beings have come a very long way since the days of early British law. Back then, if someone was accused of a crime and a judge couldn't figure out if they were guilty or innocent, the accused was subjected to barbaric methods of torture that was supposed to see if they were innocent or not based on the outcome. There wasn't much logic behind it. One thing they did was burn a person's hands and wait to see if they healed within a few days. If they healed, they were innocent. If they didn't, then they were guilty, which, come on. How does your ability to heal determine if you, robbed someone or not? That, I don't even know. In the year 1066, William the Conqueror, the Duke of Normandy, invaded England. He quickly established his power as king, and, as well as his son Henry I and grandson Henry II, changed the law by creating a unified legal system over all of Britain, in which the land was divided up into sections that were each controlled by a nobleman. This was a bit messed up human rights-wise, because the nobleman who controlled a particular section also controlled everyone and everything within that section. Some noblemen were reasonable and kind, while others were cruel and unfair. In June of the year 1215, King John, son of Henry II, signed the Magna Carta. This document was the first step in establishing individual basic rights for the people of England. The Magna Carta recognized that everyone was equal before the law, and that no one, not even the king, was above the law. This introduced the right of people to appear before a judge to make sure that an accused person was arrested within reason. This was supposed to ensure that everyone arrested could be released if they were arrested unfairly according to the law. This right is shown directly in our legal system today. Now, we already mentioned slavery, which we know has been around for thousands of years. However, domestic slavery in Britain was banned in 1381. Slaves from colonies or of other races, unfortunately, were still free game in Britain's eyes. In 1679, free speech in Parliament, regular elections, and the right for citizens to petition without fear of reprisal was established in English law for the very first time. In 1763, the Royal Proclamation was signed by King George III and is thought of as a foundation for Aboriginal rights in North America, as it detailed the process of establishing treaties and the distinctions between land owned by Aboriginal peoples and European settlers. Even though Upper Canada was the first British jurisdiction to phase it out, back in 1793, slavery wasn't officially abolished throughout the British Empire until 1833. Jump forward a few decades and we have Canada finally born as a country of its own from the colonies of Great Britain on July 1st, 1867. At that point, since our human rights were taken directly from Britain, the only people who really had privileges in our society, what we would consider basic human rights now in Canada, were only really given to Caucasian Canadian males. Okay, now buckle up your seats, ladies, gents, and everything in between or outside, because a heck of a lot of stuff happened in the last 150 years. In 1869, the Métis leader, Louis Riel, established a provisional government along the Red River and drew up a list of rights as conditions for entry into the Dominion of Canada. Included were requests for representation in Parliament, guarantees of bilingualism, and treaties with Indigenous nations. By the turn of the century, Manitoba was the first province to legally make women and men equal in terms of property rights, allowing women to keep ownership of property after marrying. For a large part of the early 1900s, a female group known as the Famous Five fought for the rights of women across Canada by protesting, ridiculing politicians, and taking their cases to the Supreme Court. In 1916, the group managed to get women the right to vote in Manitoba. By 1922, Caucasian women had the federal vote across Canada, except in Quebec, which didn't happen until 1940. In 1929, the Famous Five earned another feminist victory when the British Privy Council declared that women in Canada are legally persons, contrary to what the Canadian Supreme Court had stated before. 2 short years later, the Statute of Westminster, passed by the British Parliament, created a legally distinct Canadian crown, allowing Canada to make its own rules, separate from Britain. In 1948, the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights was passed. During the 1950s, equal pay for women slowly became more and more common, and discrimination in employment based on race was becoming slowly less and less common. In 1960, Aboriginals won the right to vote without fear of losing their legal status. During the 1960s and 1970s, the first national divorce law was organized and established. In 1969, Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau officially decriminalized homosexuality in Canada. And in 1977, Quebec became the first province to make it illegal to discriminate against homosexuals. In 1974, Nova Scotia became the first province to amend its Human Rights Act to prohibit employment discrimination based on physical handicaps. In 1976, the Canadian government abolished the death penalty as a means of punishment. When Trudeau became Prime Minister, one of the things he wanted to do was patriate an official Canadian constitution. On April 17, 1982, Trudeau succeeded. The Constitution included a principle of equalization which provided equal access to essential services for all Canadians, and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Charter is perhaps the most significant inclusion in the Canadian Constitution because it allows any laws or actions made by citizens or the government to be struck down if they violate the Charter. So far, Quebec is the only province that has not actually signed the Constitution Act. But the Supreme Court has since stated that Quebec is still subject to the Constitution and its peoples are still protected by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms because they are Canadian citizens. The Charter officially gave all Canadian citizens many rights, including freedom of conscience and religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, freedom of peaceful assembly, and freedom of association. 3 years after the Charter was enacted, Section 15 came into effect, which stated that every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law, without discrimination based on race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability. Now, just as human rights change and evolve over time to reflect society's views, the Charter is also capable of being changed. After the Charter's inception, multiple cases arose wherein discrimination was occurring based on sexual orientation. Taken to the Supreme Court, it became obvious that, hello, a group of humans were not being treated equally. So, in the 1980s, the Canadian Human Rights Commission recommended Section 15 of the Charter be changed to include sexual orientation. Unfortunately, the Charter was not officially altered until 1996. Jumping ahead again, in 2005, same-sex marriage was officially legalized in Canada, though not without much protest from numerous politicians. In 2010, Canada endorsed the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples on November 12, which was designed to safeguard the individual rights of Indigenous peoples. In 2014, the Chilcotin Nation made up of multiple Aboriginal groups in British Columbia, fought against the provincial government which was trying to claim land for commercial logging. The Supreme Court of Canada ruled in favor of the Aboriginals, recognizing their rights to the territory based on statements taken from the Royal Proclamation. And so, in 2015, we commemorate throughout the world the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta, to acknowledge its principles as the foundation of modern democracy and human rights in our country. Our rights are changing all the time as technology progresses and we learn more about each other. Our rights as humans shall continue to change to reflect our values and beliefs as a society, forever entrenching us in history. Canada has obviously been heavily influenced by many things, especially Britain, and by extension Mosaic, Greek, Roman, and French law. In return, Canada has grown a commitment to its principles that promote and encourage respect and freedom for all humans. Since joining the United Nations, Canada has become a world leader in encouraging and exercising human rights. Our country may not be perfect, but I am proud of just how far it has come, and I know it will continue to progress, hopefully to a point where discrimination based on things like race or religion are non-existent, and we as a people are all truly equal.